So in this lecture, let's talk about Python basics. We have already seen how to install Jupyter Notebook in our previous lectures. So once you install Jupyter Notebook, open this and then click on New Python 3. This is how you can create a new Python file, and you can click on here and name it as Python Crash Course. This is the name I am giving, and notice the file extension. If you are using Jupyter Notebook, it will save as IPYNB and click on rename. Okay. So now let's see the concepts of Python, right? So the first thing is, let's talk about Python introduction. Notice I'm selecting Markdown, and here I'm creating a new heading, that is heading 1. So here you can see we are able to create the heading, right? I've already talked about this Markdown features in the previous lectures, right? So let's see Python introduction. Here again I'm creating another Markdown. So here you can see Python is popular programming language because Python is open source. That is, it is free to use. And Python is object-oriented programming language, right? And Python is easy to learn. This is one of the easiest programming language. And we have library support available. There are a lot of functions available inside the libraries, and we do not need to write from scratch, right? That is, you can make use of the existing library functions and you do not have to build anything from scratch, right? For example, we have sklearn library for machine learning. And if you are building any machine learning model, we can use sklearn library functions. And we have pandas library for data analysis or data manipulation or data cleaning, right? And for data visualization, we have plotly, matplotlly, seaborn libraries for data visualization. And for deep learning tasks, we have Keras and TensorFlow. These are the popular libraries for deep learning tasks. And we can call the functions available inside these libraries and implement the logic instead of doing it from scratch, right? So that is another reason why Python is popular, because of the library support for each task. And how can we make use of these libraries? In order to use these libraries, first thing is we need to install the package. So now let's learn how to install the package. So notice I'm changing the drop down from code to markdown and run. So that way you will see the markdown here, right? And the next thing is we are trying to learn how to install a package, because in order to use these external libraries, first thing is we need to install the package. And to install a package in Python, we use pip install and you have to provide the package name. So this is the command you have to use. For example, to see the packages, we have to go to PyPy. So this is the website for PyPy. So here we are trying to search for NumPy, right? So you can see the command here. So what is PyPy? PyPy is Python package index. So here you can type any package name and it will give you the command. So you can copy this command pip install numpy, right? So that is how you will be able to install any package. So once you get this command, you can execute this command either in Jupyter Notebook and run, or you can execute from the Anaconda prompt as well. So let's continue with Jupyter Notebook and let's give this command and click on run. So notice this star, so that means it is trying to execute. So you can see requirement already satisfied, numpy, and this is the package. You may need to restart the kernel to use the updated packages. I have already installed this numpy package, so that is why it is showing requirement already satisfied. This is the step number 1. So you have installed this package. And next thing is, in order to use the functions inside this numpy package, we need to import the package, right? So now we install the package. Now let's learn how to import a package. Okay, so I'm selecting Markdown. So we learned package installation. Now the next thing is package import. Once the package installation is complete, in order to use the package, we need to import it first, right? Similarly, you can install any package and make use of the libraries that are provided. So here we are seeing NumPy library. Instead of NumPy, you can try to install any other package in the same way. For example, if you want to install pandas library or plotly or matplotlly or keras or tensorflow, right? Any package you will install by using pip install, and you will provide the package name here. To get the package name, you will go to PyPy. So this is the website where you have to go in order to get the package name, right? This is the command. We got it from the PyPy and we ran this command. So that way the package has been installed. Now the next thing is we are learning how to import a package. So in order to import a package, we have to use import keyword. Okay, so import, and you have to provide the package name that we just installed, right? And then run it. So that way this package numpy has been imported into the memory and it is ready to use. And if you want to see all the methods inside this numpy package, we can use a function called dir. So use the function dir. So let me add the comments here, so that way it will be easy for you to refer later. So what we did here with this import, we loaded this numpy package into memory and this package is ready to use, right? And here by using this dir function, we are trying to see all the methods that are available inside this numpy package by using dir function, right? So let's run this. So now you can see all the methods that are available inside this numpy package. You can see by using this dir function, right? So these are all the methods that are available inside numpy package, right? And for example, let's say if you want to see any specific method description, right, from this list, for example, let's pick max method. And if you want to see any help for this method, you can use question mark, right? So that is numpy dot max. So you want to learn more about this function, give question mark and run it. So now you can see this is the max function and these are all the parameters inside this function. And what is the signature of this method? So it accepts these parameters, right? And the data type, and you can see the complete description of this method. Return the maximum of an array or maximum along an axis. And what are the parameters? You can see these are the parameters and it is giving the complete description of each parameter, right? And what is the return type? What this method will return. And you can also see the complete description with examples, right? Okay. So if you want to take any help for that method, you can just give question mark, right? Instead of question mark, we also have help function. So you can use help of numpy dot max. So this also will give you the same thing, right? So what are the parameters? What is the return type? It is explaining with the examples, right? So close this. Let me also close this, right? So either you can use question mark or you can also use help function. Both will give you the complete description of this method. Okay. So what we did here, let me add the comment here. So to take help for a method, either you can use question mark or you can also use help function, right? So that is what we did here. And now let's learn what are variables. Okay, so that is our next topic. So what is a variable? A variable is a container to store the value. So let me add those points here so you can refer them. A variable is a container to store the value. It's an address which holds the reference to the real value. For example, let's take, we are creating a variable test and we are assigning a value of 25, right? So let's run this. Okay, and now let's try to see what is this test variable contains. You can see it is giving 25. So that means a variable, this is a container to store the value. What is the value here? 25, right? So this is how we will declare a variable. And now to see what is the data type of this variable, we can use a function called type and pass this variable and run. And now you can see this variable test is of type integer, right? Because we assign integer value to this variable test. Okay. And now let's change the value from integer to float, right? So test is equal to 25.29 I'm assigning. Okay, so this is a float value, and let's run this code. Okay, now let's try to see what we have inside this variable test. So now you can say it is 25.29. So that means we changed from integer to float, right? And if you want to see if it is actually a float or not, so you can just use this type function and pass this variable. So you can see the data type of this variable, right? So let's run this. So now we can see it is of type float. And now instead of integer and float, let's try to assign a string value. Okay, so test is equal to, here we are assigning a string value. This string either you can use in single quotes or you can also specify in double quotes. Both will work. Okay, so save it and run. So let's see what we have inside this test. So now we can see it is giving Python, right? And now let's see the data type of this variable test. Because we assigned a string value, it is giving the data type as string, right? So based on this, what you understood, the type of the variable is dynamic. That is, based on the value we are assigning, the type of the variable changes, right? So Python is dynamically typed. When we assign string value to this variable, it is giving string data type, right? And when we assign float value, it is giving float data type. And when we assign int value to this same variable, it is giving integer data type, right? So that means depending on the value that we will be assigning to the variable, the type of the variable will changes. So Python is dynamically typed. So that is all about variables. So variable is nothing but a container that can hold a value, right? And now let's learn identifiers. So that is the next topic, identifiers. So can we give any name to this variable? Here we have given test, right? So can we give any name to a variable? No, because we have certain rules for naming a variable and we have to follow those rules, right? And what are the rules? It can accept only alphabets, capital A to Z or small a to Z, and numbers and underscore, right? First letter cannot be a number. Reserved words cannot be used, right? So these are the rules that we have to follow when naming a variable. So for example, let's say if we give underscore a underscore 1 and we are assigning an integer value here, right? So let's run this. So now you can see this is a valid variable name because we are using underscore. It doesn't start with a number and this is also not a reserved word, right? So this variable name is following these rules, right? Now instead of this, let's give underscore a hyphen 1 equal to 11, right? Now let's run this code. So now you can see syntax error, cannot assign to expression here. Maybe you meant double equal to instead of equal to. So what is happening here? We are giving hyphen, but we cannot provide a variable name with hyphen. It is not following these rules. So make sure you remember these rules whenever you are trying to name a variable, right? The variable can accept only alphabets, either small a to z or capital A to z, numbers and underscore, right? Hyphen is not allowed. And first letter cannot be a number, right? For example, let's say 3a is equal to some 5, right? So let's run this code. So now you can see invalid decimal literal, right? So the variable name cannot start with a number, okay? So that is what you have to remember whenever you are trying to name a variable, right? So that's all about identifiers. And now the next topic is type conversion, okay? So type conversion means converting one type of variable to another type. For example, let's take a variable b is equal to 1, right? So this is of type string. Let's run this, and now if you want to see the data type here, you can use the type function and see the variable b is of type string, right? Because we assigned a string value. And now let's convert this string variable into an integer variable, right? So you can use the function int and pass this variable, right? So now you can see the value is 1. So by using this int function, we are able to convert from string to integer, right? Now let's try to convert this int variable to float variable, right? So you can use float of b. Okay, so that means we are trying to convert from int to float, right? So let's run this. So now you can see it is converted to float. So now let's convert this variable b back to string, right? So if you use str function and pass the variable, now let's run it again. So now you can see it is converted to string, right? So that means you can convert a variable from one data type to another data type, right? So first we assigned a string variable and we used the int function and we converted to integer, and we used the float function, we converted to float, and then we used the str, that is string function, and we converted to a string, right? So that is about type conversion, that is we can convert from one data type to another data type, right? So let me add it here so you can refer this later. So type conversion is converting the data type of a variable from one data type to another data type, right? And now let's see another example. For example, x is equal to Python. So this x is a string variable, right? So let's run this, and now let's try to convert this string to float by using float function. So now you can see could not convert string to float. So you understand that it needs to be compatible in order to do the type conversion. So you cannot blindly use these functions, because here we were able to convert from integer to float by using float. But here we are trying to convert from string to float. This is not possible, right? So in order to do this type conversion, this has to be compatible. Otherwise, we cannot convert. You cannot convert from string to float, right? That is why we are getting this value error. And now let's see how we can read input data from keyboard. So that is our next topic, how to read input from keyboard. In order to do that, we have a function called input, right? So using input function, you can read the input from the keyboard. How to do that? For example, we are using a function called input and we are saying enter a number, right? So this is the instruction we are giving, and we are assigning that to a variable called num, number, right? So now let's run this code. So it is saying enter a number, right? So let's say if I give 10 and hit enter, and now let's try to see what we have inside this variable num, right? So now you can see 10. So by default, anything that we entered will be considered as a string. So if you want to convert this to any other data type, then you can do the type conversion like we learned before, right? For example, let's say if you want to convert this string to an integer, then you can use the int function and we are passing this, right? So let's run the code. So enter a number. So now let's enter again 10. Now let's try to see what we have inside this int number. So now you can see it is of type integer. So by default, it is of type string, and if you want to convert to any other data type, then you have to do the type conversion like how we did here, right? We are using the int function, so that way whatever the input that we are reading from the keyboard has been converted to integer. So that is how you can read the input from keyboard. Okay, so let's quickly review what we learned so far. So Python introduction. So we learned Python is open source and it is an object-oriented programming language, and it is easy to learn, and we have library support available. These are the different libraries that are available, and if you want to make use of these libraries, first thing is we have to install the package. and we learned how to install a package. We have to use pip install and you have to provide the package name, right? So that is how we install the NumPy package. And similarly, instead of NumPy, you can install any other package in the same way, right? And once you install the package, in order to make use of this package, we have to import. By using this import keyword, we loaded the package into the memory, and now this package is ready to use. You can make use of any functions that are available inside this package. By using dir function, we are trying to see what are the methods that are available inside this NumPy package, right? And now, if you want to learn about any specific method, you can make use of question mark, or you can also use help function. So this will give you the method signature and examples as well, right? And next we learn variables. So what is a variable? It is a container to store any value, and it's an address which holds the reference to the real value. So here we assigned an integer variable. So we saw the data type as int. And next we assign float value. So we saw the data type as float, right? So similarly we assigned a string value. So we saw the data type as string, right? So based on this, you understand that the type of the variable is dynamic. Based on the value we assign, the type of the variable changes. So Python is dynamically typed. And next what we learn, identifiers. So what is identifier? We cannot give any name to a variable. There are certain rules that you have to follow whenever you're trying to name a variable. And these are the rules. It can accept only capital A to Z or small a to z and numbers and underscore. First letter cannot be a number, and we cannot use reserved words as a variable name, right? And we saw with examples. And next thing is type conversion. That is how to convert a variable from one data type to another data type, right? So first we created a string variable and we used the int function, so we converted to int. And we used the float function, we converted from integer to float. And we used the str function and we converted from float to string, right? And here we try to convert from string to float. This is not possible, right? So whenever you are trying to do the type conversion, we have to make sure they are compatible, right? And then we also learned about how to read input from keyboard by using the function input, right? So by default, anything that we enter will be considered as a string, right? And if you want to convert to any other type, then we have to use type conversion. Here we are using int function. So whatever we entered, this string value is converted to int because we are explicitly using type conversion. All right. Thank you.